G'day, Chop. How you going?
Good, mate. How are you?
I'm really good. I'm pretty excited. This is the first time one of the OG balcony crew been on the potty, which is probably a long time coming, but I'm pumped for it. For those that don't know, Jacob is affectionately called my son. Not biologically, although we do look super similar for sure. Jacob was an integral part of the foundation of everything that we're doing here. I've noted on a couple of the potties that one of my closest friends and I were going through similar situations when it all kicked off, and this is said young man.
Fred.
Sorry,
Said Fred.
said friend. I can't hear you properly, mate. What's going on? I'm gonna have to play around here. No, honestly, Jacob is he's just a very, very kind, loving human being. I've shared a lot of experiences together, and I'll probably let him take the lead on what he decides to share in that regard. But yeah, I love him, and I miss him so much being on the other side of the world. But I'm proud that he's wearing the balcony logo on his chest right now, because he's a huge ambassador for everything. To the fact that we nicknamed him the Prodigal Son in the balcony committee, because he really is an extension of all the things that I'm doing. But I'll leave the little intro there. I'll get more corny later. But yeah, Jacob, welcome aboard.
Thanks, mate. It's good to be on.
Let's unpack a few things. Hey, I think the interesting thing we were talking about just before is probably your perspective on how it all commenced and what it meant to you and what it meant to others, and your perspective and all that. I'd love for you to share those experiences with the game.
I remember I was actually in, I think it was Melbourne and Brisbane at the time that Tyler was doing the initial plans for the balcony. But I knew before that he was interested in making something out of the space at the back of his house. So when coming back, I knew there was a few little gatherings that we had. It was obviously just the OG crew, but then it came to a lot more. So they were like initially sort of parties, I guess. But there was always a time where we could sit down with the rest of the boys and talk about things that generally men struggle to speak about. So yeah, that was my little interpretation of it early on.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a good time. But I think if I've learned about anything and some of the feedback I've got over time as well, is that almost that in itself is a breakdown of some barriers, perhaps, to make people feel a little bit more comfortable to have those conversations. And I don't think I'm going too far off to say that maybe those conversations weren't super comfortable for you naturally at the start. I think it was something that we grew with together. But we were both going through pretty significant breakups at the time. I would even dare to say yours was more significant, Jacob.
Yeah.
I think that's fair to say. Do you want to talk a little bit about perhaps what, I guess, being a part of this movement at the start meant for you and your mental health and everything going through that experience? Because it was pretty, let's be honest, it was brutal time for you as well.
Well, I was dating the girl for about 3.5 years, and it sort of ended all of a sudden. So being able to have like Tyler and the rest of the boys around early was really helpful, to be honest. It really got me through the breakup. Just being able to go there, even if it was just having a quick dinner and a bit of a chat, that's all was really needed. You just needed sort of a shoulder to lean on, really.
For sure. I think it's fair to say I'm obviously not there anymore in Adelaide, but obviously Wads is keeping a Tyler presence really strong there. You live there.
Yeah.
You were a resident of the balcony for a period of time. I've been pretty, I guess, proud to hear that the spirit or the essence of things are still living on well and truly over there. Have you I'm putting you on the spot a little bit with some questions here, and I gave you permission to fire them back, so this will give you the lead in to shoot your shot a bit later. But
Yeah.
would you say there's been a bit of a shift in the way that you've, I guess, lived your life, had conversations with guys, perceived things since, I guess, all this started a few years ago?
Yeah, honestly, well, to be completely honest, I don't think I would have ever asked any of the questions I have since to a guy since it all started. So Tyler's probably been, like, you've probably been the best for it. It's easy to have a quick chat to you about, but even people like Rama and Connor's really good to have around. But now you get to the point where I'll go and I'll see Tyler and Moles that live there now, and we can still have those conversations. So the balcony's still really living on, even though the people that started it aren't even there.
Yeah, love that. Love that. So let's talk a little bit about what you're going through now. The last couple of podcasts that I've had, people have talked about their personal experiences, and I guess how that's shifted their perspective on life a little bit, but more so, I guess, to represent what we're talking about, some self-awareness, some self-learnings, and feel free to talk about the struggles that you've had with where you're going as well, the conversations that we've had about it as well. But tell, if you're comfortable with explaining how much you want to, what's been going on, where you're at, what you're dealing with, because it's not normal, it's not fun, and it's definitely a life changer for you.
Well, around about, I think it was 10, 11 weeks ago now, I woke up with what I thought was just a hangover. But it sort of continued on for around about a week. So I decided to get myself checked out, did some bloods numerous bloods, and they found out that there was like abnormal amounts of protein and blood in my urine. So obviously as a 21-year-old male, it's not exactly normal. No. So they sent me in for some more tests. I think it was about another 5 weeks where I did like things that I didn't really even have to do. But it's good to know that that was clear. To the day I was kind of sitting at work, feeling pretty average, and I got a call from the Royal Adelaide Hospital to come in to do some quick bloods and a kidney biopsy the following morning. So I went in on the Wednesday, and they found that my blood pressure was at 180 over 120, which is considered like hypertensive crisis. So it's potential of having a heart attack or a stroke. Obviously, as a 21-year-old, you're probably not going to get to that point, but it's still worrying levels. So they kept me in overnight, and we did the kidney biopsy in the morning. Got sent home, and a week later found out I had a condition called IgA nephropathy. Now what that is so every human produces an immunoglobulin A, which is used to fight off infections and stuff like that. Pretty much mine doesn't fight off infections, it attacks my kidneys. So I'm currently around about, I think it's like 65% kidney function, and around about like 80% scarring or something like that. So it's pretty high. And in the future, I'll probably end up needing a kidney transplant. But pretty much the message is just to cut down on some lifestyle choices like drinking and all that type of stuff. But just make sure that I take good care of myself, really. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I think, anything concerning health is paramount. It can create a huge shift in your life, physically, behaviorally. But I think the stuff that I think will be most useful to people to talk about is your headspace and how you've handled that and the steps you've gone through, you're still going through. I've been preaching on the last ones about you never get there. It's a journey and all that type of stuff. You're deep in yours. But yeah, I guess chat a little bit about where your head's at, because like you said, you're 21. That's it's a significant thing to deal with from a health perspective at your age. We've had some conversations about what you're doing outside of your health and all that type of stuff, but was talk about maybe some shifts that you've had in that space, or maybe some realignments, or some, the start of the balcony, that whole period probably shifted your paradigm and perspective on open, honest conversations. And now you've had this thrusted into your life as well. Almost maybe it's good that the other stuff happened first, so you could have that perspective on yourself and be able to have the conversations that you had, but it doesn't mean it's any easier with what you're dealing with. Do you want to maybe talk a little bit about how you're dealing with that in the old noggin there, buddy? I've got to sound Australian. Hang on.
The old noggin. I have to admit, it was kind of a little bit of a strike to the knees. I sort of thought I'd got everything like on track, and I decided what I wanted to do, and it kind of spun my mind a little bit about how I had to go about my lifestyle. But being able to reach out to people like Tyler and obviously my girlfriend Freya, a couple of the boys and lots of stuff, and let them know. It's just so important in speaking to someone about what's going on. I found that if I tend to bottle up my feelings, which I did probably when I first found out because I didn't want too many people to know, it just sort of strikes you down a little bit more. So just being open and honest to everyone is probably the best thing to do. Being able to do that's probably just come from the balcony, like the start of the balcony with Tyler helping me to instruct me in that sort of way.
Nice. Well, I'm glad that there's been some lessons that are helping you through this type of stuff. And ultimately, if people ask a lot of the times, I still struggle, Jacob, to even describe what the hell I'm doing. Sometimes I'll be really honest with you. But Molly's laughing. Molly's in the background again, team. She's here. Don't worry. But I think, any small wins, some shared experiences is what it's all about, right? And the last couple of things have been health related, but they're not always health related. There's just life throws curveballs at you all the time. And if there's any takeaways from even just that short snippet of what you said, is that it's not a weakness to ask for help. It's not a weakness to share those experiences. It's an empowering thing. It's better to go through things with others that care about you. And yeah, I'm glad to hear that network's strong. I think your relationship with Freya is beautiful. I love that. She's a gem. Shout out to you, Freya. You definitely. I say hopefully you watch. You probably watch. Let's talk a little bit about our experiences, mate. It's I guess this is where the fun part of this, unplanned. We've not put anything on or off the agenda here, but you and I have gone through some pretty interesting stuff together. I think that's fair to say.
We've had a few experiences, that's for sure.
So feel free. Let's talk about some stuff. We went on a pretty big trip together, and some interesting stuff happened. That's for sure. We definitely shared a lot of those rides. The ride of that afterwards before moving. You probably have a license to ask more questions or to unpack some stuff about me than anyone else does. So this might be more valuable for the people that are watching regarding my life and situations. Is there anything that comes to mind that you think might be valuable to discuss?
Yeah, obviously we had a pretty unreal trip together for 5 weeks in Europe. And over that time, you obviously met a girl that I'm sure people that have watched the podcast know about. So I just probably want to ask, coming home and then obviously having to go through that whole period where you weren't able to see her for however long it was. I think it was about like 4 or so months. What did you do to help you get through that, and what support networks did you have?
So from getting back from Europe to first Canada little trip, that period?
Yeah, that period, and then also again coming back from the trip and then moving.
Yeah, great question, Jacob. I mean, yeah, like for me, well, I guess I'll frame it like this. What I've learned about my move here now and everything that's happened is I've gone from, and I posted this on my story when Nada sent me a beautiful present during the week, and if you saw that, it was pretty unreal. Shout out to you, Nick Knott. I've gone from being in one long-term, long-distance relationship to being in about, I don't know, 20 plus with you guys. So the lessons are still the same. I guess ultimately what I learned when I got back from that is that, well, if I'm being completely honest, the difference between then and now is back then I was probably blinded by a sense of that the relationships were the key essence of my value and my plan and my future, all that, if that makes sense. Whereas now, I'm only doing things that I want to do. I'm super passionate about all the things that I've got going on. And honestly, even when Nick sent me the album this week, or when you messaged me about stuff to do with your health, or like Billy and I talking about travel restrictions and the wedding and stuff, like I would say that all of those things combined are way worse and more difficult than anything that I experienced when I got home from the trip. Because that's just like, it's a lot of relationships that are being tested and tried So the difference is, whilst it probably, and you experienced this, I remember you saying things when I got back from Europe, like you'd never seen me so like happy and like,
Yeah.
I don't know, calm, and I don't know. You can probably explain it better. How would you have explained it when I got back? And then I'll answer your question.
Well, it chopped and changed a little bit, but I'd have to say when you were happy, you were happier than before we went. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Just had I don't know, just like a grin on your face at all times, which is good to see, really.
Right. So I think my answer to your question is the source of that grin was not from in here. Whereas now the source of this grin is from in here. So back then I used to just mask everything because I thought it was all chill. I had like this purpose, and whatever I was doing was just like to this external source. So I didn't probably utilize what the balcony represents as much as I do now, where it's like, just reaching out to yourself, or sending, Mikey a message, or speaking to Nick whenever I can, or Pritchard, just small points of contact, especially when I went through being like super, super alone here, like when I was really, really, really alone. Like there's no pride to gain from like wallowing in silence and just, not sharing that with others, because all those names that I've just mentioned, yourself included, have been through similar things that I've been through. And there's no weakness in that. It's like natural strength of human connection to share those things with others. And what I found the difference from then to now is, because I'm doing so much stuff that feeds like myself, I'm able to be there for others more. And I almost look back at that time when I got back, between getting back from the holiday and moving here, I probably wasn't my fullest balcony self that I could have been, if that makes sense. Which I probably never realized until now, which is interesting. So I think I just completely hijacked your question and took it on a crazy tangent about things. I don't know if I'm making any sense. You're running this now, Jacob, so you can tell me where I'm going.
Yeah.
How was that for an answer? I don't even know if I answered your question.
I feel like you did.
You
went on a little bit more than probably needed, but no, you probably answered it.
At least I answered it in a very me way.
Yeah, definitely.
I do want to bring up one thing that we didn't even discuss pre-recording. As I've shared on one of my episodes about myself, are some family experiences that have been really impactful on shaping who I am today. You also have had some family experiences that you don't have to go into detail about too much if you don't want to. But I guess you're still super young. You're 21 years old. You're very, very, very young. And everything that we've talked about from the inception of the balcony to now is from your late teen years to your early 20s. You've gone through traveling experiences and then health issues through COVID. Some pretty intense stuff. I want to ask you how much you've gone back to your experiences when you're younger, like younger, and how much, I guess, you really feel like you've become more aware of yourself. And the reason I ask that, I'm going to caveat that before you answer the question, is you're still a bit unsure of where you want to go, which is fine. But I really want to hear you talk about your sense of self right now, because you've gone through a lot in the last couple of years. And I feel like that would be a really valuable thing for other people that might be quite young to hear someone that's had all that experience in such a short amount of time talk about. I'll put you on the spot, see how you go.
Yeah, that's a tough one, isn't it?
You asked me a question, so I'm just going to throw it right back at you, buddy. This is father-son relationships 101.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I guess, I've obviously had the trip with Tyler, what's going on with my family right now, and then the illness, all in the space of when did we go to Europe? 2019.
It's a couple of years, yeah.
Basically 2 years. So there's no doubt that over that time, my mind's got clouded a few times.
Mm-hmm.
Going into Europe, I had no idea what I wanted to do. Coming out of Europe, it was still more or less the same. And then it's been a similar sort of pattern through everything that I've gone through. I guess it's all just taught me to make sure that I'm doing something that I want to do.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, I probably won't have as good a quality of life as others just due to what's happening with my body.
Sure.
Um, so just being able to come and speak to people, to ask for advice, to make sure that I'm actually enticing myself into what I want to do rather than just being stuck in a job or a career that I'm not going to enjoy. Um, I want to, my end goal is just to be successful and provide a successful life for me and my future family. Like that's the end goal.
Mhm.
And I just want to make sure that I'm doing something, that I enjoy.
I think I'm proud of that answer because ultimately, I think a lot of people, I don't know, they just get so comfortable in what they're doing in an unhealthy way. And I think almost always striving for that sense of fulfillment more so than sense of comfortability.
Yeah.
And whilst you may ask me quite regularly what you should do sometimes,
Yeah.
and I lead you down the garden path without giving you the answer, and it's probably painful, but I'm almost proud that you at least ask the question all the time. And I think that's the most important thing. I always say this to a lot of people: life's not about having the right answers, it's about asking the right questions. And if you're constantly asking, it's not just you, I'm talking about anyone, you're completely asking yourself, what should I be doing, what makes me happy, all those type of things. The fact that you're considering those things is going to put you in a better place than never even asking those questions, because it's scary to think and it's sad to think, but I feel like a lot of people are almost scared to ask that question sometimes because it's that fear of the unknown, of
Yeah.
like, I'm going to have to go into a realm of something that I'm not comfortable with to figure that out, answer out. um, and I guess I'm proud of you for, you might have dipped your toe into that to try and figure that out and not come out with the answer. And then it's even more brave the fact that you keep going back in until you figure it out. And I think I could want, uh, could not want anything more for anyone than that approach to things. So I wanted to see what you're going to say first, but that's ultimately what I was trying to say, is that I'm pretty proud of you doing that stuff.
Thank you.
No, I mean, honestly, mate, you've been through the ringer. Um, Aussie slang, love that. And you keep battling up. Like, you might be my actual son. We should do some tests. Um, it's impressive stuff. So you should be proud of yourself. Um, you can't play footy. That's tough.
Well, they haven't really said that I can't play footy. It's just that I'm generally not feeling well enough to get through
Mm-hmm.
a 2-hour contact sport. So a year off for now is probably the right decision.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're looking to potentially play next year. I don't think it'll be at the highest level that I want to, but just for fun, just to stay social with mates is important as well.
Mm-hmm. I think it's an interesting thing that you noted then, because I, um, as our network will know, missed a lot of time. Was not around football for a while from injuries. I think it's an important thing to bring up if we're going to talk about the balcony concept. Is it something uh, I won't say regret, but when I first got injured and finally accepted, maybe 2 years into the 5 years where I wasn't around, I decided to distance myself from the football club.
Yeah.
But retrospectively realized that was really a selfish thing to do. It not only made it tougher for me to maintain connections with people as well, but I also look back and realize that I then disconnected myself from others as well. And I feel like if
Yeah.
you have positive intentions, that's a super selfish thing to do. And I'm proud of you for saying that you're going to stick around and be involved in stuff, because it is super hard to sit there and watch. It's very painful. It's really tough.
Yeah.
But in the essence of just being there for others, we talk about community sense of having conversations with people, but even just watching and being around and being in a part of the community is way more valuable than not. And you can extend not being able to play footy into feeling really sad and being really down or really struggling or having any other health issue as well. So I think the lessons in that are very similar as well. So good for you for having that perspective. This is a Jacob hype session. I'm just gonna pump you up.
I'm happy with that.
Any other questions you want to throw me under the bus with? Should be quite interesting.
Not really, I thought we might as well focus on like a little bit of a high point and say what was your experience of our trip together? Obviously the good part coming out of it, the memories and stuff.
Well, I think, well, I look back at that as well because I've obviously reflected a lot on that trip for many reasons.
Yeah.
um, I critically analyze it in terms of like, because I've gone through such a shift since I've been here, right? In terms of who am I? Like, what am I? What do I value? Connecting with my body, myself. A lot of this, you hear me say energy every 5 seconds now, that type of stuff. But I look back to that experience, and I know you're thinking of a lot of the same stuff with me about how positive all of it was, you know. And I realize that you're in an environment where your expectations are zero. You're just free. There's no stress. You're just enjoying yourself, right? But then I thought about it even more. It's like, well, because you're doing something that you want to do. At that stage, we both wanted to travel. You're overseas. You're meeting new people. You're having like a great time. Like you're pursuing something that you're passionate about, right? So I look back and go, like, in that state, you probably the same. We're both just like doing what we love in a sense.
Yeah.
And to talk specifically about the trip, like I have no regrets about anything from that trip. Like we keep beating around the bush about a singular person, but like I'm so grateful for her for so many different reasons, for who she is, what she taught me, everything that's happened since. Like nothing but immense amount of love for her as an individual, for the experience and everything after. But beyond that as well, like the connections we made, like Mikey being that like the ambassador for being able to project even better than I can what this whole concept represents.
Yeah.
You're in a state where you're not thinking twice about stuff. You're just so free. And I think I want people to live in their day-to-day lives the way that you live in those type of travel environments. I know people think that's so hard, it's not possible and stuff, but
Yeah.
take a lesson out of it. It's like, well, when you're doing something that you love, that's how you operate, that's how you think, that's how you experience things. um, you and I in particular, um, I mean, obviously the balcony conception was a really strong bonding point for you and I. And I think that's a big lesson for anyone listening, that going through something together can really strengthen relationships for life. If you're transparent, like you and I, for those that don't know, the only way that we really knew each other was you knew that I used to play footy at an
Yeah.
at a pretty okay level for the club that you played at, was a bit older than you.
Yeah.
But I don't think you know too much more. You can probably actually answer that better. Like what before the balcony kicked off, what was our relationship from your perspective? This would be interesting.
Yeah, I think I met you at the footy club maybe once, and I think actually I came to you for like just a little bit of advice. Sitting down at the table, you were sitting next to Tom Daly, from memory, and I just asked like, what's a good way to go about life, I guess. And I knowing that you're pretty successful for your age, so. But besides that, we weren't really any more than that. We just two blokes that played at the same footy club.
I remember that conversation now that you mentioned it. Shout out to Tom Daly. Happy birthday for the other day. Um, yeah, no, that's I can picture us on the table. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Um, so that there's a lesson in itself. Like people that aren't super close, when you go through that together, like look what can happen. And we're sitting here now. But I mean, um, even from that balcony point to that trip, like I remember leading up to that trip, you just dropping hints about the trip, and I was like, obviously, his mother. Oh shit, I was going to say that. I can say whatever. He wants to come on the trip with me. But I look back, we had a pretty decent relationship before then. But by the end of it, like literally, and I know we joked that like Sophie and I were your mum and dad, and that's how you're my son,
Yeah.
and all that type of stuff. But like,
Yeah.
I feel like in a lesson in itself about the whole experience, about approaching life in a way that you are traveling, that sort of stuff. Approach relationships that way. Like you and I are just completely transparent. We shared everything. Everything was on the table. And you come out a few weeks later. Obviously, there was the prelude before the trip, like bonds for life. And Mikey is a perfect example outside of you and I. Like I've only spent 2 weeks with that guy. We talk every few days, and we're gonna talk forever.
Yeah.
I just had a very wholesome day here, my first day in the snow living in it. And I sent a Snapchat to probably my closest friends. And I just said how grateful I am to
Yeah.
all of them for the role that they've played in my life to get me here. And like, he was one of them. And I've only spent 2 weeks with the guy. Obviously, you've got that Snapchat as well. But yeah, like reflecting on that trip, I think it's more just it's just a way that you approach life, and you can apply that in an everyday setting. And if you're waking up every day and you're not doing something you love that you're passionate about and you get energy from, obviously travel is a very unique example to be talking about in this environment that we're in right now. Um, but the lessons behind it and the essence behind it are the same, I think. Um, what do you think from our experience?
Round trip. I don't know. I feel like we were reasonably close before we went, and I'd been dropping hints for about 3 months that I was keen to come on the trip with you.
Yeah,
But I
just a little.
definitely think that our bond went from, I don't know, like a like semi decent friends to like pretty much best mates or father and son really. So it's amazing that 5 weeks can do that. Yeah, pretty much.
I think anything, and I know honestly, it's the first time I've probably said this to anyone but myself, but like I'm super stressed about being able to come home in a few months. Like just with everything that's happened, I don't think it's gonna happen anymore. Um, I want it to, and like I'm still hopeful, but as Justin said to me the other day here, like the odds are not stacked in my favor right now. And it kills me to think to not be physically in contact with you guys for so long. But if I've learned anything from having done a long distance relationship in the capacity that I did pre-move to what I've done now, is that like if you miss someone, or you're wondering how they're going, or even how they're like, if they know how much you care about them, just fucking tell them. Like, just send them a message saying, I miss you, or I'm thinking of you, or something even just so simple. Because like, if anything that's happened this year in the last 12 months for me, like anything in life can happen. Well, we just unpacked about what you've gone through in the last 2 years. I don't think pre that relationship breakdown you would have listed off those things as happening for you in the next 2 years. So I don't know. I just feel like I just hope that COVID is an opportunity for everyone to realize the value of human connection, not just physically, but just in an open conversation perspective. I feel like I'm going to say the youth of today, I'm so old, maybe have lost sight of some real values in that space. And I feel like almost a lot of freedom's been taken away from that population right now. So I really hope that can almost make it grow in a much more positive way after that. And this openness and that chasing what you want to do and asking yourself, am I happy? Am I doing what I want to do? Does this give me energy? Asking your friends that question, even if they just tell you to remove the things that don't make you happy every single time you ask them. That's what it's all about moving forward. I don't know. That's what I think. I just say a lot of stuff though, Chop, don't
Yeah,
I? Well, buddy, I appreciate you opening up about what's going on in your health, in your life. I know that animatedly speaking in a big public forum is not your forte, even though it's just you and I, but I think you're doing a really good job. I think, I probably didn't go into enough detail at the start, but I'm a bit of a pain in the ass sometimes, and I wouldn't just throw the term prodigal son onto anyone. I think from those early days in our relationship to traveling to now, I think there's a real pure essence of your spirit that is amazing. Obviously, Freya knows it. I think the people around us close know it. And I know that you're not there yet because there doesn't exist. It's a continual journey. And I think I'm proud of your perspective of always challenging where you're going. And I'm glad that you've acknowledged, even in this chat, that you're open to talking to others about it, that you acknowledge the value that there is in talking to others about it. And whilst it's ultimately your responsibility, the only thing you can control is yourself. The value in sharing those experiences with others is just unmeasurable. And you're a good advocate for that, buddy. And I love you. And I'm super proud of you. I don't know if I said that. You're proud of me too? I love that.
Yeah, I'm proud of you too.
Well, mate, I hope I sounded a little bit more Australian this one. I'm sick of the feedback I've been getting for others.
I reckon you did actually.
You reckon? I think it's the A's, like podcast. And even like people here like say like but, and they really say their T's and stuff. And I'm just like, but. Anyway, we'll leave that there. Yeah, I hope we can get a full Brady Bunch version balcony OG team on there at some stage. I think that would be super valuable. and maybe we can unpack the party fun stuff a little bit more as well, to get some lessons there. But thanks for sharing, mate, and
Thanks for having me.
can't wait to give you a big cuddle.
Yeah, hopefully you'll be able to come back mid-year.
The energy out there, manifest that.